This succulent has got to be the most popular hanging plant, and it is for a good reason. Pterophagia woodi variegata, or variegated chain of hearts or string of hearts, is a beautiful succulent with heart-shaped leaves. This plant will beautify any spot and is quite easy to look after. The variegated hearts are a mutation of Pterophagia woodi that is native to South Africa, Eswatini and Zimbabwe. It can be found trailing and hanging off rocky outcrops. It uses crevices to grow roots into and can trail for over 4 meters. The roots and stems will often develop tubers as the plant grows. In good conditions, the Pterophagia woodi can reach a good 4 meters in length, and if it has soil to root into along the way, it can grow way beyond that. The size of individual leaves can vary depending on light and root space. On average, they can reach about 2 centimeters. I have a video on how to manipulate the growth and color of the leaves. The leaves usually grow in pairs opposite each other along the stems. They are a perfect heart shape and a bit textured on the surface. The variegated hearts can display 3 colors: cream, green and pink. But when the plant is stressed and during the winter months, the whole of the leaf can be mostly a shade of pink. Indoors or in too much shade, it is very likely the leaves will primarily be green and cream with very little pink. Variegated chain of hearts will grow best outdoors but also make great houseplants. They prefer a bright but sheltered position, such as under a covered patio, tree or by a super bright sunny window. In my nursery, they grow under 30% shade cloth, which they seem to love. The hearts will tolerate a full sunspot most of the year, but can burn and die easily if they are exposed to the sun in summer, especially during heat waves. In a sunny position, the leaves are likely to grow very compact and small, and in shade, they can be double the size. Indoors, the chain of hearts will tolerate being away from windows, but will likely grow very slow, if at all. I would strongly recommend choosing a spot by the window with a bit of sun. It can be grown in pots outdoors as well as frost-free gardens. Although repotting is recommended, it can be difficult due to the strings getting entangled as the plant grows. If the plant is too big, you can put a bit of potting mix on top and fertilize every spring with slow-release fertilizer to maintain growth and avoid leaf loss. If you only get light frosts and no snow during winter, you can grow this succulent in the garden. The hearts will ramble across the garden floor and can even grow up branches of other plants. They can also be used along the edges. When growing in the ground, you can help it establish by mixing any type of potting mix with the garden soil. By cultivating and mixing in a bit of potting mix, you'll add nutrients and improve the soil structure, making it easier for the plant to grow well. When growing succulents in the garden, it's best to choose a slope, raised beds or a spot where water doesn't pool after the rain. In pots, chain of hearts will thrive on good quality succulent potting mix. Succulent potting mix will have the right pH and nutrients tailored to succulent plants. As we discussed earlier, when growing in the garden, it's best to cultivate the soil by mixing in a bit of potting mix. In my nursery, all succulents are grown outdoors and get rained on. Pterophagia woodi is no exception, and it seems to tolerate rainy and humid periods well. And if you're growing it in a hanging pot with holes, in my experience, you really don't need to worry about rain or overwatering. In fact, you may have to water quite a bit more than you would your regular succulents to keep this plant lush and happy, especially during summer. Pterophagia woodi is quite drought hardy, and the water storage in the tubers will help it get through some tough times, but the leaves and stems hold very little water. As a result, when the plant is dry and the weather is also very warm, leaves can be dropped as a preservation tactic. I would recommend watering this succulent when the potting mix dries up from previous watering. But in my opinion, it should not be left too dry for too long when warm. During winter, the hearts go dormant and do not need to be watered. When grown indoors, water when the potting mix dries up. I find my indoor hearts only need to be watered a couple of times per month at the most. Temperature-wise, it will tolerate heat well over 40 degrees Celsius, though it should not be exposed to direct sun as it will likely die. High temperatures don't seem to be a problem for Pterophagia woodi as long as they are in a bright shade. When it comes to cold, it is not very frost hardy. It can get frostburns and even die when temperatures drop to the freezing point. It should, however, tolerate cold temperatures down to about 1 degree Celsius. Our outdoor Ceropegia survives 0 degrees Celsius just fine. If you only get the occasional frost, use Frostcloth to protect your succulents. During deeper frosts or snow, bring this plant indoors for the duration. The variegated hearts are relatively easy to propagate from cuttings when done during the growing season. The non-variegated Ceropegia woody will also propagate from seed and leaves. The variegated hearts will kind of grow from seed and leaf, but in my experience the variegation may not come through. When I tried propagating variegated seeds, only albino leaves came out and the plant eventually died. Albino leaves have little or no chlorophyll and therefore don't photosynthesize very well. The leaves are a bit of a hit and miss and can revert back to the non-variegated hearts, but some do carry on the variegation. To be honest, I'd highly recommend growing the variegated hearts to a decent size and do cuttings. One long string can easily be turned into a few pots. You can divide a string multiple times. I usually make a cut after 2 to 3 sets of leaves. If you already have a node, cut in a way so it goes into the ground. Nodes establish very fast. Cuttings should be left to dry for about 24 hours before planting. This will give the wound a chance to heal and prevent harmful organisms from getting in. You can plant 3 or more cuttings per pot. More you have, the fuller your pot will look. Plant into pots filled with succulent potting mix and transplant into the garden or a bigger pot once enough roots develop. New roots should start growing in 3 to 4 weeks and the plant will be ready to transplant in approximately 2 to 3 months. If you do want to try the leaves, they are a bit different to conventional succulents as the leaf stem has to go into the soil. Leaves can take a long time to get going. A tuber will have to form first, and once it's big enough, new strings will grow directly from it. This can end up being over a year. I don't think it's worth the effort, but if you like a challenge and enjoy seeing leaves grow, it may be a fun thing to do. When it comes to seed, you can also give it a go and see what comes out. Both heart varieties produce lots of flowers turned seed pods when grown outside. Indoors, it may find it difficult to get the flowers pollinated and some plants will not flower at all due to lack of light. If you do get a seed pod, you'll have to make sure to catch the seed as they are designed to be carried by the wind and have a bit of fluff attached to them. This is to make sure they're picked up even by the slightest breeze. A bit of cloth or old stocking or any type of breathable bag can be attached to the seed pods. They can be planted straight away. I use succulent potting mix, but any seed raising mix will do. Make sure to keep it moist and not let it dry out. Keep the watering and moisture up even when the seedlings come through as they are small and don't have a lot of water stored yet. The potting mix should be moist but not soggy. The seedlings can be transplanted when they reach about 10 centimeters. The stem breaks easily when this small, so be careful when handling them. In my experience, propagating is best done in spring. Summer is usually also good, but do be careful to protect your cuttings and leaves from strong sun as they burn easily. Hearts especially don't propagate well during the winter months, and it's best to wait until it's warm enough in spring. In climates where autumn and winter are mild, you can also propagate cuttings at the beginning of autumn. Personally, I stop propagating leaves and seeds by early to mid-summer so the plant has a chance to develop before winter. Leaves that are not yet developed are also more prone to dying if exposed to direct hot summer sun. Ceropegia woody tends not to attract the usual succulent pests that much. They do sometimes attack, but I rarely see them. Aphids can be found on the strings, but if there are tastier plants around, they should leave the hearts alone. They do spread fast though and should be eradicated immediately if you spot them. Pyrethrum spray works very well for these little buggers. I've seen mealybugs once or twice over the past decade of growing these, and the good thing is they cannot hide very well on this plant. Squashing is the most reliable eradication method with mealies, as they can be resistant to insecticides, but if there's an infestation you can try 70% alcohol or mealybug specific insecticide. Root mealybugs love root-bound plants and can go undetected as they live in the soil, and they are pretty common with this succulent. As I mentioned earlier, repotting is difficult once the hearts get longer strings, but if you do uncover root mealybugs somehow, there are drenches and tablets to control them. Bigger pests such as snails, slugs, caterpillars and grasshoppers can sometimes attack too. If larger chunks go missing, they are likely to be the culprit. Ceropegia flowers are very unusual and interesting. They act as a trap and imprison insects to make sure they have some of the pollen attached on them. You could call this top part the prison bars, which is exactly what they are to the flies that go into the flower. The color is a pretty pink purple and the flowers come out from the nodes. The hearts flower randomly and appear multiple times throughout the growing season. Ceropegia woody and its variegated form are not toxic to humans, dogs, cats, other pets or livestock. I have seen some references to it even being edible, but I would not advise to eat it just in case, even though it would look amazing in salads. And on that note, that is all for today. I hope this video was useful. If you have anything to add, you can do so in the comments. To learn more about succulents, hit the subscribe button or go to our website succulentgrowingtips.com. Thank you so very much for watching.